guys? It's a moment for me to hit the beatless, and today I want to talk about a tricky subject, man, and that is building muscle as a vegan. I'm not talking specifically to raw people today, just anybody who's plant-based. This applies to you if you're raw, if you're not raw, more so if you're not raw, probably. Because I know when I went vegan, I made some of these mistakes, and I'll be honest with you guys, when I went vegan, at first, there was a time when I lost so much, when it came to my physique. I lost so much muscle, I lost strength. I lost a lot, I lost a lot. So I definitely learned the hard way. So this is me sharing that, what I've learned with you guys, so y'all don't have to go through the same thing I went through. And don't judge my physique right now, because it's a work in progress to get back to a certain point. For you guys that don't know, I was injured recently. It wasn't in the gym, it was outside of the gym. But so I'm kind of coming back from that. But so don't judge my physique right now. I'm usually bigger. But anyway, so here we go. So, okay. One of the biggest things that people don't mention when you go plant-based that makes it super complicated to have a great body composition, meaning you have a lot of muscle and a little bit of body fat, which is how I personally always have kept things. I don't like to get fluffy, I don't care to bulk up and put on a bunch of excess weight and a bunch of excess body fat that blurs out my definition. So that doesn't mean that I'm always feeling like you should be shredded to the bone either. But for me, being lean I'm naturally lean, so it works for me. So with that being said, the biggest roadblock when it comes to building muscle as a vegan is carbs, because most of your food sources are gonna have carbs. Even, if you're trying to be whole food and you're trying to be healthy, then you typically go to beans or legumes, and when it comes to protein, right? But when you look at a bean, the bean has more carbs than it does protein. So it's not a protein food, it's a carb food. If something has mostly fat, it's a fat. That's how I look at it. If it has mostly protein, it's a protein. If it has mostly carbs, it's a carb. So beans are not a protein. A lot of people say beans are a great source of protein. They're not a great source of protein. Not if you want to have a great physique. They're fine if you're just the average person looking to just eat, then they're fine. But if you're trying to have like a really great physique, if you're trying to compete, if you're trying to just be shredded and shut it down at the beach, whatever it is, then or you're just trying to flex on your haters, whatever you're trying to do, it's not ideal to have a carb be your main protein source. So what do? Do you go have a bunch of protein powders? Do you just stock up on vegan protein powders? Well, those don't digest that well either. So, or not either, but those don't digest that well. So if you start having a bunch of protein powder, what you can find is that you're very gassy, because your body's not able to break that down really well, because it's not a whole food. Your body's meant to break down whole foods. So those options are out, right? So the bean option is no good. The protein powder option is no good. You can have protein powder in moderation, but too much is not good. So what do? You have a couple of options, right? Number one, you can do something that I never recommend, and that is go the mock meat route. You can have these low carb mock meats that are high in protein and are not good for you. So you can do that. And then there's a couple of better options in my opinion. And number one, this is probably the best, and it is tempeh. Tempeh is fermented soy, and it tastes good. It's low carb, it's high protein, which can mimic the macros of what you would get on a typical bodybuilding diet that included animal products. You need to mimic those macros. You can't be having twice the carbs, less protein, or the same amount of protein and expect your physique to look like a bodybuilder. you have to eat like a bodybuilder to look like a bodybuilder. Now that doesn't mean you have to eat animal products, but you have to eat a similar type of macro. So different bodybuilders eat different amounts of macros, but it's not that different. Generally speaking, it's the same, especially when it comes to being lean. So if you want to have that type of a physique, right, whether you're a guy or a girl, and if you want to have that physique with great muscularity, but lean at the same time, and like just looks super like chiseled, really looks like the kind of physique that where people are just like, Jesus, what are you doing? Then you have to limit your carbs to a certain degree. Now, I'm not saying you have to eat low carb at all, but you can't be eating absurd amount of carbs, right? So you can't, let's say that you typically used to have a piece of meat and and some rice or some potatoes or something like that. And you would have, in that meal, you would have 50 grams of carbs and 50 grams of protein. Well, if you try to do the same thing as a vegan and replace that meat with, with beans of any kind, you're gonna find, you're gonna find that your carbs are way higher, right? Because you have, let's say you have even just like half a cup of beans, generally have like over 40 grams of carbs. So you have your rice or your potatoes, which is your carb source, and then you have your beans, which is just as much, if not more carbs than your carb source. So you have this meal that's got an insane amount of carbohydrates, and in my opinion, doesn't make me feel the best if I'm eating all these carbs all the time. Keep in mind that I eat a good amount of times a day, more than the average, more than 3. So if you eat 2 or 3 times a day, it's probably not a big issue, but it is gonna make a difference in your physique, even if you feel great. So what do you do to get lower carbs, but get the protein that you need and build the physique that you would be able to build with proper macros? You have a couple of options. So number one would be, like I said, tempeh. Tempeh is the best option in my opinion. It's versatile, it's high in protein, it's low in carbs, it's also low in fat, and you can turn it into damn near anything. You can put it in damn near anything. So tempeh is good. And then your second option is tofu. Tofu is not as good of an option as tempeh because tempeh is fermented soy. Tofu is made from soy, but it's not fermented. But when I have tofu, I have sprouted organic tofu, so that's what I recommend. But for sure, make sure you get it at least organic, because a lot of times soy is GMO, so you don't want genetically modified food. So get if you get tofu, get it organic, and it's high in fat. It's high in protein, but it's also high in fat, but very low in carbs. And then your last option, there are other options, but this is your last option if you want to stay away from the mock meats and stuff like that. And if I look tired, guys, excuse me, I've been up for over 20 hours, but your last good option is seitan. So seitan is vital wheat gluten, and it's super high in protein, low in fat, low in carbs, but keep in mind that it's made from vital wheat gluten. A lot of people try to avoid wheat gluten, but if you have no problems with it, then give it a try, because there are so many ways to flavor it. When you buy this different seitan at the store, a lot of times it's really good. So personally, I don't eat seitan, at least not on a regular basis, but I have had it. I've had it quite a few times, never had a negative reaction or anything like that, but I just don't do it, just for the simple fact that it's vital wheat gluten. So yeah, pretty much that's it. That's all I got for you guys. So the conclusion of this video, because I kind of feel like I rambled a little bit. Again, I'm a little bit tired, so if I'm scattered, I'm sorry. But the conclusion of this video is carbs. You can't have too many carbs. You have to figure out how to get your carbs down to a reasonable amount, not low carb, but not absurdly high carbs, right? Generally speaking, if you're a soccer player, have absurdly high carbs. You know, if you're running back and forth for long periods of time, have absurdly high carbs. But for everybody else, probably not gonna make the ideal physique. So yeah, anyway, I hope that helps you guys. If y'all like this video, please give it a like, give it a comment, subscribe. If you have any questions for me, leave them in the comments down below, or hit up my email at frommeatheadtomeatless@gmail.com. I do offer coaching if you guys are interested in that. And that's it. So I got for you guys. I'm out.